close the door, if that's fine. Okay, thank you. So, we're here today on this African Day to talk about the implications of climate change on the African continent. And with me here, I have a very powerful panel that's going to actually throw a lot of light on how climate change is actually affecting Africa right now. We're going to look at the different perspectives that we feel are most pressing, where climate change is affecting the youths and Africa as a whole. Here with me we have Mr. Samuel Tete Sowana, who is a student at the he's from Ghana, and he's a student at the Egypt-Japan University of Science and Technology in Alexandria, and specializes in a training for the award of an MSc in environmental engineering. Close to him, we have Mr. Ari Thomas Mangeb, who is a PhD student in agribusiness technology in the University of Bamenda in Cameroon. Very close to him, we have Mr. Gassem Omari, who is the country director of the Asia Africa Youth Foundation. And at the extreme, we have Miss Emanuela Doreen Kofi from Ghana, who is actually a student at Law Ghana School, and she's as well the founder of the Elarin initiative focused on women and children. So here, we're going to have them tell us. This panel is diverse, and we have at least one person from a country in Africa representing the realities we have in Africa. And we'll have them tell us the impacts climate change is having on different sectors. First, I will start with Mr. Sami. Samuel, could you tell us what are the challenges we're facing with the energy systems in Africa right now as a result of the climate change?
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. And in Africa right now, there exists a high level of or high demand of electricity or energy as compared to the supply. And due to this, people resort to the use of cheaper or alternative sources of energy, such as kerosene, petrol, diesel, and other sources too. And these sources actually are not environmentally friendly, and it is really being a great challenge in the African continent right now. And this also brings to the notion of the idea of renewable energy. And you know that renewable energy needs a higher cost of installation and then also maintenance. So because of the level of the financial level of most African countries, it is very difficult to install such renewable energy plants in our countries. All right, and then also looking at the layman's point of view, in Africa or in my country, when you go to the village level, the farmer or the local or young man has little idea of what is happening, or has little idea of global warming, has little idea of the impact of kerosene and petrol and charcoal on the climate. So there is the need to sensitize our youth, and there is the need to make the grassroots more educated about what is actually happening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samuel. We will now direct the next question to Mr. Ari. Thomas, could you please tell us, what are the challenges the agricultural systems and the water resources in Africa facing as a result of these carbon emissions? It's been on the lips of everyone. What can you tell us? What are the challenges we're facing in Africa?
agriculture is the backbone of many African economies, especially sub-Saharan Africa, where agriculture constitutes 80% of their economies. However, for agriculture to be effectively take place, there must be water, and due to the effects of climate change, agriculture has some challenges in Africa. These challenges varies from one country to the other, as far as when we look at the tropical countries in agriculture in Africa, they have floods, while the arid and semi-arid countries, they have drought. It is, however, important to look at the impact or the challenges of climate change of agriculture and water. So when we take first the point of agriculture, due to the effects of climate change, we realize that farmers no longer understand or have the mastery of their agricultural calendar. As far as some countries are concerned, like in Cameroon, the agricultural calendar runs from the 15th of March to the 30th of June. However, due to climate change, it is now difficult to predict when rains will start, and however, farmers no longer master the agricultural calendar. When we talk about the factors of prolonged droughts and floods, when we talk about floods, we look at the arid countries like Mali, northern Cameroon, northern Nigeria, where they have serious drought due to the effects of climate change. When we look at a country like, also in the north, we also have floods, countries like Zimbabwe, Mali, Algeria. So it is, however, necessary to also look at the impact of water on the impact of climate change on water. So when we look at, however, Africa has one of the largest bodies of water, such as the Congo Basin, the River Nile, we have the Lake Victoria, but water resources is still a problem in Africa. We look at the aspect of health. We know that in the arid and semi-arid regions like the desert, Egypt, Niger, they say water is life. But due to the effects of climate change, it is difficult to have water. And when we look at now, in Africa, we realize that 90% of deaths, or we take it in absolute value, which is 1,100,000 deaths in Africa, is due to poor sources of water, which is the effect of climate change. We also have an effect caused by climate change, which is pollution. Due to floods, wrong sewage run into the water bodies, it causes pollution, and it also watches farmland, and as effect, all this will affect agricultural productivity. However, it is necessary to know that the effect of climate change in African economy is both social, physiological, man-made through deforestation, and for us to mitigate climate change effects, we need to sit together and work with nations and look how to manage the challenges and mitigate the effects of climate change. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Thomas. We can hear from our first two speakers. All of them are actually throwing light to the fact that Africa is facing a lot of challenges now, and the main causes are global warming as well as unavailability of funds. The funds that we need to probably use in ameliorating the situation when it comes to electricity, when it comes to our needs of energy, our needs of clean, potable water. So right now we'll go to our next speaker, Mr. Omar, who is going to tell us how changes in climate are pushing Africans, especially the youths, like the youths we are, to migrate from one place to another. what is really the problem? What are the problems they are facing that pushes them to keep moving about?
Okay, thank you for this opportunity to talk for speech for the African community, and also the for my colleague here in this stage. Now, I want to talk about the Africans' crisis, or now the face international community to crisis is faced for all countries, especially that is one of the thing of climate change and global warming. And second crisis is the face of the African community or international community, is migrations. We must to try to find definition for this crisis, especially for migrations. What is migrations? And what's the reason of the migration? And who is the migrations? And from where immigration, from where to where, from places from place to place. Okay. That means lead us many problems we will be facing through what migrated from places your places. And firstly, we are say that the migrations is a person who move across countries or international border or within the countries. Also, there is many reasons to let people go from the approaches countries or within the countries. For example, is the reason number one is personal legal status. There's the people go from side to side and what's the legal is be staying in these places and what's the conditions and what the law is be let him to be stay here. Number two, also within the movement, inventory and inventory. Also people have reason to let him to move from place to place, his inventory and as an inventory according to his circumstance or his status, let him go from the other places. And also we have what's the reason of movement? Also, according to the climate change, there is a big influence. It's a big reason let the people go from these places to another because maybe he not finds himself or maybe the many reason let him to go out of his residence. And number four, what's the length will be stay, and what's the period the migrants will be staying in these places, and what is be done for these places. All these crises led the African community maybe also is the same problems is the face for all African countries, even under global warming and climate change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ali. And now, let's go to the lone lady in the panel. And Ella, I see from your profile that you're particularly focused more on women and children. And now you're about to tell us how climate change is affecting the gender. First, I'll ask you two questions at the same time. Like, do you think the climate change is affecting everyone equally in Africa? Like all the genders equally first? And if yes or no, you tell us why you think so, and then go further to tell us like, all right, what are the challenges this particular gender is facing?
Thank you very much. Before I start with my presentation, I would like to thank Ministry of Social Solidarity for such a great opportunity for young Africans to meet today to discuss the challenges facing the African continent, and especially to the volunteers management team for putting all these together, and for our colleague volunteers for being here to support us today. Thank you. To the first question, is climate change affecting all genders equally? My answer is no. We have seen in the African continent that we have experienced a long system of patriarchy whereby the male gender has been controlling all affairs, whether from the governmental sector, financial, even at the homes. We see that, and I think it's really rampant in my country, and I think it's the same for all other African countries. And we are not saying that the male gender is not being affected by climate change, no. But on the balance of probabilities, we are saying that the women and children mainly are being more affected by the effect of climate change. And I'm going to give these 4 reasons why I think that is so. So the first one is on hazardous cooking mechanisms in Africa, and then clean cooking technology. We heard from some talking about energy and the various fossil fuels and other modes of energy that we have. And we see that in every African society, the most common way of cooking is using the firewood or charcoal, which emits so much carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And currently the whole business of COP27 is that we want to reduce this so that we have a temperature of about 1.5 degrees Celsius. So these women, the relationship between clean cooking and then gender is that most of the time in African homes, it is the women who cook. And they are going to be cooking with firewood, which emits so much hazardous gases. And so according to the World Health Organization, about 3.2 million people die globally every year from just cooking. They're not dying from having HIV or any other thing, just from cooking. And so this is what I think that attention must be brought to the fact that women who are most people who cook in the homes are dying as a result of cooking. And this is as a result of inaccessibility to clean energy. So if these women are now going to be switching to a cleaner energy, I believe that their lives will be saved. Also, I think that the men do not have enough knowledge about clean cooking technology, because in the African setting, especially in a marriage setting, it is the man that provides upkeep money and buys all this technology in the homes. So if he doesn't understand the effect of climate change and the need to use clean cooking technology, then he's not going to provide that clean cooking technology for the woman, and it's going to be a bigger issue. So I think it's one of the things that we must take notice of. Well, another problem that we currently face in Africa is exclusion and decision-making process of women. And today's theme for COP27 is Women, Gender, and Africa, which means that this time around, the theme is not just saying gender and Africa. The theme is saying women, gender, and Africa, which means that women play a very vital role in the whole climate change business. But then I'll not go far. So the very first photo that was taken of the world leaders at COP27, the opening ceremony, the statistics was that about 110 global leaders were present, and out of that, there were just only 11 women. Yes, that's the actual statistic. So imagining that we are coming to have negotiations and then a particular conference and discussions on climate change issues that are affecting the whole world, and we just have only 11 women on that board. This is really, really appalling. Sorry for my language, but that's the reality on the ground here. Women have been seen over the years to be one of the major contributors to socialization. For you to be able to instill a particular way of life in an individual, it starts from the time that the child was given birth to. And so this woman needs to be included in the decision-making process because they play a very important role. For instance, you want to stop plastic waste, improper disposal of plastic waste. It starts from the home. It's the woman that will tell the child, no, this is not how we do it. When you finish drinking sachet water, drop it in the bin. It is the woman that is going to be taking care of segregation of plastic waste back and in the home before even the child goes out there to the school, and you see that that child is still using that particular practice that he or she obtained from home. So women play a very, very important role. And we even see that in Africa, the governmental system of Africa. Globally, there are just about 26% of women who are part of the decision-making process, actually like parliamentarians. In Ghana, we see countries like Rwanda, which I would really applaud them for having about 61% of their parliamentarians being women. But then you go to countries like Benin, Togo, and other countries, they have less than 10% of women being part of their parliament. And we ask the question that if a decision is going to be made that is going to affect the whole country in the aspect of climate change issues, where are the women on the table? And the issue is that we don't just want the women to be on the table to observe, no. We want them to be part of the discussions, to contribute, to engage, so that we can have like an inclusive discussion. So those are some of the issues. Another issue that we will talk about is gender-based violence. Most people do not avert their minds to that, but I'm going to give you the relationship between climate change and gender-based violence. So our second speaker over here, Mr. Thomas Are, discussed agriculture and then water and all that effect. Now, in Ghana, we usually plant maize, which is a staple food in Ghana, from the period of, let's say, June, July, when usually there's much rainfall. Now, this is the situation whereby during June, July, there's no rainfall. So it means that the farmer has to, the farmer cannot plant that maize for you to eat. And so by the time that there's a little maize in the system, the price of that maize would have gone high. And the husband is getting the same amount of money from his work. He's not getting any, different amount of money, that's a huge salary. So if the husband is giving $10 per day to the wife to take care of the home, so now he's still expecting that the amount of food that the wife would have placed on the table is the same, but that's not the reality on the ground. She goes to the market, prices of that particular staple food has gone high. And most of the time, out of fear and all these abuse, they are able to come back to the husband and say, give me more money. And so that's when there's arguments and the tensions are high, then the husbands are agitated. So there is this whole abuse, financial abuse, it could be verbal abuse, it could be physical abuse. So that's the correlation between climate change and gender-based violence. And the last issue we are going to talk about is lack of awareness and support. There's a popular quote that I really love by a Ghanaian patriarch named Kweji Agri. He says that if you educate a man, you educate an individual, but if you educate a woman, you educate a whole nation. But then these women that are supposed to create awareness do not even have much knowledge about climate change. They are not included, as we discussed earlier. They are not educated. They don't have any knowledge about it. But they are the major socialization agent that we have in society. So the issue is that why are the women not being included in the processes? Why are they not being trained? And this is not even just a woman matter. I think this is where the gender aspects come in. Both men and women must be trained. We come here at COP27 looking all pretty, world leaders and all that. But the real people who contribute much to the climate change business is the local person in my village, the one who is farming, the person that goes to the market and uses lots of polythene bags and plastic waste. We are here, we've gotten these green bags and all that, but what about the person back home? So these are some of the things that we are supposed to take out there as young people, as Africans. When we go back, we should advocate that everyone should have information. The information should be accessible and it should be available to all. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Emanuela. And I'm very much impressed. I'll still direct another question to you. I'm very much impressed at the way you try to address the problems we're facing back in Africa when it comes to gender. And I'm sorry to say, But you've spoken so much about the binary gender. Did you by any chance try to look at the challenges the non-binary gender could be facing because of the climate change? And if you did, what are they? If not, are we trying to be more like feminists to show like, okay, the woman, the African woman is facing those challenges? No, that's not the goal here. Like everyone, it should be something inclusive for everybody. And when we talk about gender, I think it's not just the woman or the male and the female. Did you kind of reflect on the challenges the transgender could be facing?
Okay, thank you very much. I think as when I started with my presentation, I mentioned that today's theme is about women, gender, and then Africa. So I tried to make my presentation more of a balance, talking about women, in particular talking about gender and Africa as well. Now, when it comes to the other genders, that's so when it comes to the other genders, my personal opinion on that is that they're already facing that much of stereotype, okay? And even till now, there's not so much, so many African countries have not embraced all those other genders. However, instead of like the resources that they will need or the support that they will need, we are now faced with a global issue which is called climate change. And so it has made the other aspects that we need to focus on, it's like all finance, all attention, all energies are now diverting to the climate change matters, and so we are not really now looking back at even education and other problems that Africa is facing. It's not only climate change that we have, climate change issues that we are facing in Africa. We have so many issues, from bad leadership to lack of accessibility to schools and all that, from so many issues, even health issues, and so many others, you know. But because climate change effect is so rampant and it's like moving so quickly, and although Africa contributes to just the 3% of CO2 in the atmosphere, when it comes to the effect of climate change, we are facing it much more than any other continent. And so on the issue of the transgender, I think that they have not been heard for a long time now, I mean, to the extent that they want to be heard. But then right now we are faced with an issue that we are all diverting our minds from the major problems we are facing in our country to climate change. So that's my opinion on that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I hope all of us will learn something from it. But let's just be mindful of the fact that when we're talking about gender, it involves a lot of people. And if we have to look at the challenges, let's try to be a little bit diverse in our thinking. And in that way, we'll be able to get everyone on the train. Like everybody should be moving along. Let's not think like, okay, this problem, maybe because we're diverting it, let's handle this one and segregate these people for now. And let's also have it at the back of our minds that all of us, the youth, the young people, we need to advocate for the same goal. We need to advocate like these are problems should come to a point where we're pushing them out on the spotlight to be able to get solutions. And to that, I'm going to leave the floor now open for any questions from the audience. Any questions from the audience?
Good evening, everyone. Okay, so first of all, I want to say a big thank you to my young youth. You guys really did a good job. I really appreciate it. My question is actually to the moderator. So you are trying to actually tell us more about the other genders, right? Okay, so today, I did not know that when you say gender, you're talking about the other gender when it comes to climate, actually. Because I've been doing climate advocacy, and when it comes to gender, we don't specify whether transgender, other genders, no identity. We just do women, men, children. Children in particular. Okay? So now today is Gender Day. And truthfully, when it comes to the statistics in climate in Africa, it affects more of women and children. That's the truth. So we don't know what affects the other genders, including men. So let me just say, if you can actually tell me more about how it affects them, maybe not in Africa, but maybe in other places, so we'll be aware of this kind of issue actually. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. Like I said, when I was moderating and asking the question, I tried to find out from her. She's been talking about men and women, the problems they're affecting. Our objective today is to look at the problems affecting Africa. There are various topics were different, and when she was talking about gender, I'm like, okay, you've spoken about women, men. She didn't say much about children, but my worry was did you think about the non-binary gender? They exist, and obviously they're part of us. Live, of course, in Africa, it's gradually coming. Maybe it's not yet legalized, but we have them. They live amongst us, they exist, and they're actually facing the same problems we're facing. But if we just keep on talking more about men and women without looking at how climate change can directly affect them as well, we'll kind of segregate them out of the solutions if we have to find the solutions. And to that light, I'll say maybe you can, for example, be talking about, you might be talking about energy. We're having a problem with energy in our countries because people are still depending so much on fossil fuels. Why? Because they are cheap. Everybody will be depending on fossil fuels because they don't have the means, probably, or maybe they find themselves in very remote settings that they don't have access to electricity, maybe hydropower or solar power or green energy per se. But you find some transgender, because it is still not very pronounced, living in that remote area, that if we cannot voice it out for them that they're facing those challenges, they will remain in the dark. They will probably have to hide their identity, and they will not be able to speak for themselves. So it is us, the youths, to bring those people to pull them along in our advocacy. I don't think it's maybe we should just say, let's focus on the women and the children. Everybody is affected. Be you a binary gender, a non-binary gender, all of us are facing the same challenges. And if we keep on focusing on what is already out there, what is not out there will remain in the dark. And Africa will keep on going behind while the others are progressing. Because the truth is, amongst us, we have the transgenders living there. Even if it is not legalized, they are there. I think that's what I have to say. Any other question? Any other question from the audience, please? Okay, I'll go back to the audience. Maybe we have a closing remark or a piece of advice from any of the panelists.
Thank you once again. And another something I would like to conclude with is that, climate action, climate change is an individual thing. I want us to look at it from the individual perspective, in the sense that whatever we do, our actions, whatever we do in our daily activities has an impact on the climate. So we have to really look at the little things we do, like leaving our rooms with our lights on, our ACs on, as our air conditioners on, our kettles on. All these things leads to the high consumption of power, and then it goes on to result in a lot of unfortunate circumstances, in the sense that as your power is on and you are at the workplace with the company's power too on at the same time, that means that there's going to be a high energy demand. And if the energy that's being supplied at that time is not able, or let me say, if at that time there's not a lot of means to get you that energy, or to get the whole area that energy, that means that there's going to be the energy that's going to be produced the next time is not going to come. Yes, so we need to look at the little things that we do in our lives, the little things that we do in our homes, the little things that we do in our daily in and out activities, and make sure that we are really conserving energy. Thank you very much.
The effects of climate change are real in our economies, and I think we have to go back, make our people understand the challenges we face as a result of climate change, and try to see how we can mitigate the effects of climate change in our community, try to work with our governments, local communities, and the women especially, because the rural women are the people who are really involved and really feel the impact of climate change. We say in economy that if you educate a woman, you educate a nation. And however, Africa, which relies on rain-fed agriculture, and 80% of our rural women are small farm holders, I think they really feel the impact of it. So we need to look into the challenges and see how we can mitigate it. Thank you.
Okay, I want to try to briefly support these cases, especially for the African countries, especially for the global warming. It's going to be affected for the African countries, and this is lead us. And what about the global warming to increase for the temperatures, as lower set for the atmosphere, for the Earth, and the frequencies for raising the cost for the increasing the emissions gases, and also we have a sweeping green area in Africa. Also, the global warming, it is effective for this because the people is cutting the trees and cutting and selling the woods because almost people in Africa is who is a poor, and also this is lead us for also big crisis facing Africa is the floodings and droughts, especially in desertifications of means that of this similarities and rates for overlapping for complexes phenomena, and maybe in the causes of the several factors which is as much as for the descents for the east floatings, droughts is the first other or such as expensive of the African area. And also we have tried to find a solution according to the mechanism which is being supported by the countries for how to mitigation and how to reducing the cutting trees, and so to keep at least other side to keep it for the forest to until and to keep our Africans area be is a forest. Thank you.
Okay, so my closing remarks here. I would say that climate change issues and global warming can actually be solved in a matter of a year or two. Because when COVID came, we had never seen COVID before. But in less than 2 years, we had found a vaccine. And we are all here today without nose masks, feeling comfortable. So if we all come together and if all hands are on deck,